You're listening to the Dirty Air Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Dirty Air Podcast. If you're watching on the internet, you can see that I'm alone in a room. It's almost like a glass case of emotion, but that's because Speed Weeks is going on right now at Daytona International Speedway. So Matthew Dillner, Jonathan Merriman, and Regan Smith are all down in Daytona. And guess what? Through the magic of internet television, we are able to go and talk to them. So Jonathan, Regan, Matthew, hey guys, welcome to the Dirty Air Podcast. How you doing, buddies?
It's nice and warm and sunny in Florida, and I don't think either one of us feels bad for Chuck being back in the office alone.
I don't. I heard it was snowing yesterday in North Carolina.
We got like beach chairs here. We're just like sunning out. It's amazing.
Beautiful week. No rain in the forecast. I think that's the first time in years for Daytona.
Don't say the R word.
Good week so far.
Don't say the R word.
Yeah,
Chamber
We're
of Commerce
four-letter word
weather.
racing.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
Well, it did precipitate a little bit here in Charlotte, but we didn't get the snowmageddon that they were calling for on the weather. But Saturday down at Daytona, I think there might have been a race. And Regan, correct me if I'm wrong, but last week on the Dirty Air Podcast, you sat here and said that you were going to watch the race from the stands. Did you get an opportunity to go up and watch from the new Daytona Rising experience?
I did, and man, I was not let down at all. Had a chance to go up and sit in the sprint suite, and what an incredible job they did with this whole facility. I know we talk about how it's got that stadium feel to it. Well, right from the start, you're able to drive underneath the grandstands. All the stuff that you don't want to see at a sporting venue, it's down there. It's cleaned up. The fans don't see any of that stuff anymore. As you get up into the concourse and where all the food and different things like that are, way better setup, way cleaner, way better flow to how things go. The entryways up the big, huge escalators into the facility, they're great. The club levels, just tons of amenities, and I think I was as impressed with the club level as anywhere. You got patio seats. You can go. You can't see it from pit road. It's got a different perspective, but you can actually go and sit in patio seats like you're lounging like we are right now out here in the middle of the coach lot. And it was as a whole, by far one of the nicest facilities I've been to in any sport. It rivals any of the greatest places that have ever been built, as it should, because it's Daytona, and this place is special. And I'd expect nothing less with the rebuild based on what we were hearing. And then the suites. Got a chance to go up in the tower, see the suites, sit with our friends at Sprint for a little while, and the suites were phenomenal. Felt like I was on top of the racetrack. The chair was like a theater room. Like if you're in somebody's really nice home with a theater room or something like that, I felt like that's what I was sitting in. Cup holders. The only thing it didn't do, my legs wouldn't kick back. If my legs would have kicked back, I'd have stayed up there all night long and maybe slept up there.
It was $400 million well spent. I mean, like you said, we were going to say, we were up there for the ARCA race. And you could see everything.
We were sitting up there with the fans, up there on the top level. We wanted to go as high as we could, and 100-something thousand new seats. But what I was impressed with, for a big guy like myself,
did you fit?
Yeah, it was nice and wide. It wasn't like most going to a football game or a baseball game where I'm like all wedged in there with a shoehorn. It was awesome.
Yeah, and I think to me the best part is when we landed, and for those that don't know, the airport at Daytona is right behind the racetrack.
It's right over there.
You literally land and you're looking at the racetrack out the windows of the airplane. And when we landed, and we've seen this happen for the past couple of years, this Daytona Rising coming out of the ground, but you look over there and it just is it looks completely different. It is so big, and it stretches the whole front straightaway. I think I got told it's a mile from end to end, like right at a mile exactly. It just looks like a venue that really catches your eye and makes you say, man, what's going on over there, even if you don't know a thing about racing.
So Chuck, where'd you end up watching the Unlimited from?
Well, I was watching it from a restaurant here in Charlotte because I was off that night, and I did have to ask the folks in the restaurant if they could turn on the race. But it was an exciting race, and I think still the most important feature.
He was going to the wrong place then.
The most important feature of the racetrack is the track itself. So what did we see on the track Saturday night, fellas?
A lot of smoke and sparks and a lot of torn up, expensive equipment. I mean, what did you see from a driver's point of view watching that from the stands? I mean, it looked like, it was chaos.
Yeah, I saw a lot of rusty race car drivers out there. Was the first thing that I saw. Moves that typically guys wouldn't have a problem with. They were having trouble with. They were struggling with. As we watched the race and as it unfolded, it kind of became clear too that guys, maybe if they weren't in the position that they wanted to be, if they felt like they needed to get further up in the pack as the race winded down, they didn't really care about making that move that they knew might not pay off, because they knew they didn't need this car. In most cases, this was a third car for guys, and it was getting sent back to North Carolina after that race. And we heard about them all talk before and after the race. Well, there's really no penalty to crashing in this race other than the money it costs the car owners. I know they don't appreciate that, but we saw some guys make some moves that were maybe questionable. A couple tire problems. I think the 14 car's tire problem was maybe caused by some earlier contact from what I heard and what I saw. But then the 17 car blew a tire. There's Denny riding out in the back. He's back there, says, "Oh, I'm gonna
chill
just
out
go
here.
ride. I'm gonna save my stuff, and when a moment comes, I'll move up and go for the win." And here his car gets half torn up. Naturally, he still ends up winning the race. So all this work we do in the wind tunnel and all this focus that goes into these cars, and he wins with a car that's duct taped together practically. Go figure it out.
It was definitely different. I mean, what I saw too is there's so much emphasis right now in plate racing, and you can probably further emphasize this, but on side drafting.
Yeah.
And when you're in traffic 2-3 wide, sometimes that the side drafting creates a little disturbance and creates a little hecticness, if that's a word there.
Yeah, and the middle car was, I think we saw any of the middle cars danced around more.
Yes.
And especially on corner entry, if they were climbing into the banking, we'd see that middle car dance. I know I saw it a couple times out of the 14 car. Actually, I think the 48 car, a couple times I saw him slipping and sliding in that situation. So certainly the side draft was playing a factor in it. With some of the older downforce rules, from 2, 3, 4 years ago, you wanted the middle. That's where you could make up the most time, and you could go when the cars were stuck. And now we're seeing with this package, it's maybe a little bit hairier.
Where do you want to be now, though?
Out front now, and that's I think you've always wanted to be out front, but it just seems like the leader has more of an advantage right now with this current package than they've had in a long time. We saw it all last year. The thing I was a little curious about, and I watched this pretty closely, a couple cars that I thought would come through the pack quick, being the 88 and the 11, early on they started in the back. They were stuck back there for a while, and they'd try to make moves and they couldn't get going. Well, we know those are two cars that once they get the lead are capable of staying up front pretty easily, and we've commented on the 88 for the past couple speedway races, how it's almost like it's got a secondary bubble around it that he can stay in front of the pack, and they both had trouble getting through the pack. The 11 eventually got there, because of the pit strategy and how they played out their race to get up there. But I was a little curious about that. It didn't seem like it was as easy for a couple of those guys to get through as I thought it would be. So maybe that plays out in the 500. If somebody's up there, they stay up there. If they have a bad pit stop or a problem, they fall back.
Well, and that's the question that I have, and real quick on this, how is this going to play out in the 500? What is what we saw in the Unlimited going to translate to the 500?
We're all looking at each other on that one.
You're the driver.
I don't know. I don't think it will, and I'm going to say I don't think it will for a couple different reasons. It was cool the other night for the Unlimited. I think it was probably 45, 50 degrees, no sun.
And we're going to be racing at 1 o'clock in the heat of the sun. 80
degrees they're calling for right now. So that's going to change this place drastically. And it did the same thing last year. If you guys think back to the race last year, I think the duels, it was literally 36, 37 degrees out. By the time we ran the 500, it's 75, 76. And the track was a handling racetrack at that point. There was cars that were extremely tight. 20 laps into the run, side by side was tough. So I think we're going to see that play out. I'd say the first 100 laps will be a typical 500 of guys just kind of feeling their car out. A lot of 2-wide racing. It'll single file out at the end of tire runs. Next 100 to 150, that lap mark, it'll probably start lots of 2-wide racing, maybe guys slipping up off the corners and touching a little bit here and there. And from 50 on out, there's no telling. The gloves come off at that point. 3-wide will be, it'll be the whole remainder of the race. And if you make a mistake, whoops, so be it. It's the Daytona 500 year.
I think the duel's going to get hairy, personally.
I think that you need to watch yourself on that. I hope you're wrong. I do.
All I know is there's a group of drivers that actually have to race their way in, and it's not a large group of drivers, but they don't have the charter, the provisional, or.
And he
or
also talked about the rust, and some of those guys weren't out there in the Unlimited. So
there's a couple guys that haven't been out there in even longer than that too.
Brian Vickers, Robert Richardson, basically didn't really run much of anything last year.
Right.
There's a few guys out there. that they've got to go for it.
I know, as you say, you think the duels are going to get hairy. I know there's about 36 teams over there in that garage behind us that are hoping. Well, you can't see it, but there is a garage back there somewhere behind us. They are hoping and really want these duels to not get hairy. I don't think anybody minds some 3 wide early on when the tires are fresh, maybe a little 2 wide as the tires get wore out. But I know that for the teams that are locked in, they want to get as many spots as they can and not worry about what happens to their primary cars. We've commented that the big teams always say, "Oh, we got another one in the hauler that's just as good." That's I hate hearing that statement because there's a reason why you picked a primary race car. There's a reason why that's the best car that you brought down here, and you said, I want to qualify this car and I want to try to race it. And even though the draft's the equalizer and maybe it's a little different after qualifying because of the draft, there's still a reason that you selected that car. And I know in our case at Tommy Baldwin Racing, we want to run our primary car. There's a reason why it's our primary.
It's called a primary for a reason, and I got to agree with you guys. I think late in the race, that 50 to go, we're going to see some fireworks, and we saw it in the Unlimited. We saw the new overtime rule. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say we might see that again in the Daytona 500. But Sunday, we laid down some qualifying laps, and lo and behold, the 24 sits on the pole again at Daytona International Speedway, but it's a different driver. It seems like that team has not missed a beat changing drivers to Chase Elliott. What do you guys...
The key word there, too, the key word you said, Chuck, was team. I mean, that the team has not skipped a beat. They have a rookie in the car, but their equipment is still lightning quick.
Well, if you look at the aerodynamic program there, Jonathan and I were talking about this the other day. You got Berge and Tommy Ryan on there, and you got some old school guys really working with Hendrick there that have worked for years on their aero program. And every year they bring a bullet to this racetrack, whether it's the 5, the 24, any of the cars, the 48. But 2 years in a row now, that 24 team has been on top. And quite frankly, it's the story of Speed Weeks right now. And qualifying has been the story of Speed Week seemingly for the past few years, between Danica Patrick getting the pole, between Austin Dillon, his rookie year in the 3 car getting the pole, Jeff Gordon getting the pole, and now his replacement in the 24, Chase Elliott.
I think the only surprise to me is that it wasn't either the 88 or 48 up there with him, that Gibbs was able to get up there with the 20 car and kind of spoil the party. But I couldn't agree more. I mean, that 24 team has been strong for a number of years coming down here and continue that on with Chase in the car. And not to take anything away from Chase, because obviously he's a great race car driver. The driver's job is a little bit easier here in qualifying than other places. Now, with that said, the driver can do a lot to mess it up. As you're sitting there getting ready to pull off a pit road as a driver, you're thinking, okay, I know my guys gave me a fast car. I just don't want to mess it up. I don't want to shift at the wrong point. I don't want to, grab a little bit too much steering wheel, slow it down. And he did everything right from his side. And, that team is showing they can build a fast speedway car.
If all goes well in the duel for him and he doesn't get caught up in anything, there's going to be a rookie starting on the front row of the Daytona 500. Does that worry you, being a guy who's, you're going to be starting behind him at all?
Well, I think if you look, as we said a minute ago, you look past the last 4 years, and 3 of those 4 years now will have been a rookie with Danica, Austin, and Chase. All drivers with a lot of experience, and I don't think anybody, especially with Chase, anybody's really that concerned at all. He's got a lot of experience at the Xfinity level and has plate race now and understands the deal. So, and really,
he has a good
honestly,
mentor.
He does have a good mentor. I think his dad knows a thing or two about speedway racing. Maybe going fast too. I think he's maybe set a track record somewhere.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the history of Daytona, we've had a lot of rookies come down here and sit on the pole.
Loy Allen
over the years.
It comes to mind.
That was
the number
one of the
19,
first ones I thought of.
The Hooters entry years ago. Just coming out of the blue, and everybody's saying, "Who the heck is this kid?" And he's on the pole for the Great American Race.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Chase Elliott came out of the blue, although the car is blue, so you could say he kind of did. Now, I do have this question, though. He being a younger individual.
Hey,
we're only live.
What do you guys have going on
we
down there?
Carl.
We got a guest that was going to stop
Edwards
by
wants to be a guest
but
here.
now
Carl Edwards riding his bike.
Carl Edwards is driving by on his bike. So you guys are in the driver coach lot down there in Daytona. So it's like we're live.
Yes.
It's a lot of cool things going on down there.
Yeah, you never know. We might have a few trucks passing us by here. And
if we're real lucky, we'll get a pumper truck. That's what we
if we
keep
get a pumper
hoping
truck,
for.
we're going to have to get some clothespins for
If
it.
we got a shot of Carl yesterday at Media Day, he was talking about riding his bike, and everybody makes fun of him for that little mirror he had on there.
I
so
wondered what that was.
yeah,
I saw that.
go on NASCAR.com and check out our recap stuff from Media Day, and you might hear about Carl's little mirror thing.
Well, that was kind of the transition that I was trying to make.
I like it.
I got a little bit screwed up because of the Carl Edwards thing, but Chase
We're
Elliott.
hooked up right here,
yeah,
Charles.
we did. We are on a wavelength, man. It's the beards. It's the beards and the plaid. But Chase, I know there's a lot of stuff going on this week in between qualifying and in between the Daytona 500. Is that distracting as a driver?
I don't know if it's distracting or not. Maybe you need your mind, something to take your mind off of things. But Dillner, you were there.
Yeah, he was actually just across the way at the airport with the Air Force Thunderbirds taking a fly along. But it wasn't just your average, fly along. It was
fry along.
Fry along.
What are they frying up there?
I'm hungry. I want some
okay.
burgers and fries. But he got to do it with his Hall of Fame dad, which is such a special thing to go side by side in Thunderbirds, pulling 9.5 Gs with your dad right alongside you. So they put their names on there. It was a really special day. We actually got to follow them behind the scenes yesterday throughout the whole process, and we're the only ones over there. It's the pole sitter for the Daytona 500, and we're going to bring that exclusive on NASCAR.com coming up here today or tomorrow. But the video is spectacular, and I'll just say one of them kind of lost their lunch. We're not going to tell you who.
Oh, that's
Don't
exciting.
spoil it. Don't spoil it like they
spoiled
spoiled their lunch.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I'd like to know who it was.
I won't spoil it.
I was actually driving south on 95 and had an opportunity to see the planes as they were taking off.
So you saw Bill and Chase fly by.
I saw them in the air.
Did you hope that they didn't come back so you'd be start up one spot further?
If you just send Chase, I don't know if he's on the inside, which it's going to work out with the duels and everything, which I think actually I'm in the first duel, so yeah, I'd be on the inside row with him, which would move me up. But no, I saw him take off, and they were making almost like an oval shape as to how they were flying, and I remember looking and thinking, what are they doing? And then I figured out, oh wait, it's the Thunderbirds, and they were burning some fuel. They were cooking when I looked up there, so definitely a neat experience, I'm sure.
So real quick, with Media Day happening on Tuesday, and we were, like Jonathan said, we were live on NASCAR.com. Is there, what'd you guys take away from Media Day?
What did I take away from Media Day? Regan Smith may have been one of the best interviews of the day. Our old buddy Regan here. I learned.
Wait, hold on. I got to increase that hat size.
That when you talk about the Daytona 500 or plate racing, these guys talk about luck. They have to be there at the end. They can't get caught up in something that's not of their own doing. But it's just a big unknown, and maybe that's part of the allure of the Daytona 500, because these things are not easy to win. You have to put yourself in position, and then you have to wait and see if anybody else ruins your day for you.
This isn't a type of race that, Jonathan, you can come out with the fastest bullet and it looks like you're going to win. This is the type of race where you have to put it all together. It's from the mental aspect of it, standing out there on the grid, of the amazing pageantry and the butterflies that goes through any driver's stomach, from when they're racing quarter midgets and go-karts.
You get more butterflies here than anywhere.
Exactly. To putting together effective pit stops without making a mistake, no pit road penalties, to not making a mistake in the draft and keeping your mental focus. This race right here and the Darlington Southern 500, in my opinion, are two of the most mentally challenging races for any race car driver.
Yeah, and I agree 100% with that. And
he won at Darlington, by the way. We
talked
about that at length
here.
yesterday.
I'm a mentally strong individual, evidently. But with that said, there's so many things that can go wrong here. There's way more things that can go wrong. You are gonna have a problem on Sunday. It just depends on how severe that problem is, and it depends on how you rebound from it. Maybe it's a second slower pit stop that costs you 5 spots on the racetrack. Maybe it's a loose wheel that you have to make up a lap.
Trash on the grill.
Trash on the grill, yeah. There will be something to happen to every car in this field on Sunday, and it's just a matter of how they deal with it, how they come, how they survive it, and mentally what they do as a driver. Is the driver going to blow up? Is he going to implode in the seat? Is he going to be strong enough to say, hey, no big deal, we can make this up later on? So there's so many elements that go into this race, and the only other race I would add into their Coke 600, I think you can have equally as many things along with the Southern 500, but these 3 races, they seem tougher, as you said, for whatever reason.
I equate it to Tom Brady. If you watch Tom Brady, arguably one of the most amazing quarterbacks of our generation.
I knew you were going to get Brady in here somehow.
I'm not a Pats fan, but you look at that guy, and when he throws an interception, the next time he comes back in that huddle, it's gone.
Right.
When you talk about mistakes, a driver in a way has to have that approach.
Well, I like your talk on mistakes.
Let's go to Chuck.
I like your talk on mistakes there. Well, speaking of mistakes, hopefully we will not make mistakes as we make our NASCAR Fantasy Live picks here on the Dirty Air podcast all season long. Now, bearing in mind that we do not know the full lineup for the Daytona 500 because the Can-Am dual races are this Thursday, and when we're recording this on Wednesday, we don't know the lineup. But bearing that in mind, who are you taking as your lock to do well and win the race and your dark horse to have a really good showing down there on Sunday?
Matt Kenseth, I think, is going to win his third Daytona 500. He's a little bit overlooked in terms of plate racers, I think. He's not. Most people say Dale Jr. My dark horse is going to be Brian Scott. He was strong here in July in the Xfinity race. I think that's going to translate. I think he's going to get Richard Petty Motorsports a pretty good finish.
I'm going to keep with the JGR theme. I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say Denny Hamlin is going to be my lock. My dark horse, as much as I want to pick myself, I don't think I should do that. It's only my second podcast, so I have won here before. But instead of doing that, I'm going to say Danica. I think Danica puts together a whole weekend and a whole day on Sunday, and she has a good day.
I really wanted to go with Kyle Busch, but I can't help. Walking in the garage the other day, everybody seemed to tell me that the 2-car of Brad Keselowski was the fastest bullet down here. So I say Brad Keselowski, even though he doesn't have a win down here in July or February, gets it done. And my dark horse pick, I got to look at the Wood brothers right now, and they may not have a charter. There should be in the show, though, it looks like. But Ryan Blaney,
I think they're locked in now.
They've had the Cinderella story here before with Trevor Bayne, a rookie that's very fast. They were fast all year long last year when they showed up to the track. So 21 car.
Chuck, who are you picking? You talked a lot of smack last week on the podcast.
Well, I'm going to take a page out of Chris Rice's book. He talked about it on the preview show delivered by FedEx that'll be here on NASCAR.com. Jimmy Johnson. I think Jimmy Johnson is going to get the win in the Daytona 500. Lock himself into the chase early.
500.
And then, with my my sort of dark horse pick, I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to go with the guy that's driving the number 7 car down there at Daytona. I think I'm going to take that $10 value pick of Regan Smith.
We like it.
That is my dark horse pick.
Finally, we've got an intelligent human being on this show with
$10.
us.
Is he wearing a Regan Smith shirt? We can't see it, Chuck. Is he wearing one underneath his probably
vest? If he isn't,
and
I'm going to make
plaid?
sure he is by next week.
You make that $10 go far for Charles.
I can do that for sure.
Although we want Charles to do bad, so we can't have you tank though.
All right, so real quick as we wrap things up here on the Dirty Air podcast, I want you three to give me your final thought or headline, what we will see Monday morning after the Daytona 500. Jonathan Merriman, go.
It's going to be Rise and Shine, 3-time winner Matt Kenseth. Daytona Rising, Rise and Shine. There we go. Monday morning.
Catchy.
Regan
I'm going to
Smith.
say sold out Daytona 500 produces most memorable finish in history.
Wow, that's pretty good. My family's here with me this week. This place is like just America, man. This is like Johnny Cash and apple pie. This is the great American race. So I'd say my headline would be the greatest American race.
Well, that was close to a headline from Matthew Dillner, but my headline, I think, is going to be shocking win, 7 in victory lane, beer for everybody, Daytona 500. Boom. Dynamite America. For everybody here on NASCAR.com, I'm Chuck Bush. You got Jonathan Merriman, Matthew Dillner, Regan Smith. Enjoy the Daytona 500, everybody.